Ryan was an engineer on a deep space ship called the Horizon Star. The crew of 40 humans had been traveling for months through empty regions of space. Their goal was to reach the edge of the known universe, to test a new jump engine that could open stable wormholes for faster travel. Ryan was responsible for maintaining the energy system that powered the jump drive. He was quiet but clever, and he loved solving problems that others found impossible. The mission had been peaceful until one strange day, when the ship's sensors picked up a strange pulse coming from a nearby nebula. The pulse repeated every few seconds. Like a heartbeat, the captain ordered the crew to investigate. The nebula was filled with glowing blue dust that moved like waves. The light looked calm, but the readings showed wild energy changes. Ryan warned that it could be dangerous. The captain trusted his skill but decided to continue, saying that Discovery always carried risk as they entered the nebula. The pulse grew louder in their instruments. Then the lights in the ship began to flicker. A strong vibration passed through the floor. Ryan ran to the control panel and shouted for everyone to stabilize the power core. Before anyone could react, a bright flash filled the windows. It was like lightning made of crystal. The ship was pulled forward as if grabbed by invisible hands. When the shaking stopped, the crew looked outside and saw something that made them fall silent. The stars were gone. In their place was a field of giant structures floating in the dark. They looked like massive rings made of silver metal, each one glowing with soft light. The nearest ring was the size of a planet. It spun slowly, creating patterns in the void. Ryan checked the coordinates, but the computer could not find their position. The wormhole had taken them far beyond the charted galaxies. No signal from Earth remained. The captain ordered calm, but everyone knew they were completely alone in an unknown part of the universe. Ryan worked hard to fix the navigation system. After hours of testing, he found a planet near the largest ring that showed signs of breathable air and life. The captain decided to send a small landing team to explore. Ryan joined, because they needed an engineer to study any technology they might find when the shuttle left the Horizon Star. Ryan sat by the window watching the strange light of the blue star that the planet orbited. The surface below was silver and white, with forests that shimmered as if made of glass when they entered the atmosphere. They saw rivers of shining liquid that reflected the sky like mirrors. The sight was both beautiful and unreal. The shuttle landed in a wide valley surrounded by tall trees with glowing leaves. The ground was soft and smooth, like polished stone. As soon as they stepped out, the air felt light and filled with a faint sound, like a melody carried by the wind. The team began collecting samples, and Ryan placed sensors to read energy levels. He noticed that the ground seemed to react when he moved. Every step made the nearby plants brighten slightly before they could continue. The light around them dimmed. Several tall figures appeared from between the trees. They were not human. Their skin was pale silver, and their eyes shone like small stars. They wore armor that looked alive, shaped from the same glowing material as the forest. They held long staffs that pulsed with blue energy. The team froze, unsure what to do. One of the aliens stepped forward and spoke in a voice that echoed softly. It was not human language, but their translator devices began to pick up the pattern. After a few moments, the words became clear. The alien said they were on the sacred ground of the Alindra Empire and must follow them. The captain agreed and told everyone to stay calm. The aliens moved gracefully, leading the humans through the forest toward a city in the distance. As they walked, the path began to glow brighter with each step. It felt as if the entire world was alive and watching them. When they reached the city, Ryan could not believe his eyes. The buildings were tall and transparent, made of something between crystal and light. Bridges hung in the air, connecting towers that floated without any visible support. The streets were full of Alindra citizens who looked curious but not hostile. They watched the humans with fascination and whispered among themselves. At the center of the city stood a great palace built around a glowing tree whose roots reached deep into the ground. The guards stopped at the entrance and told the humans that the queen wished to see them. The captain hesitated but then nodded. They entered a long hall filled with blue mist that shimmered like stars. A soft song played somewhere above them, made by unseen instruments. At the far end of the hall sat the queen of the Alindra, She was tall and graceful. Her hair flowed like liquid silver and her eyes held shades of both gold and violet. The air around her seemed warmer and brighter. Ryan felt a strange calm as he looked at her. She rose slowly and walked toward the humans. Her movement was silent, almost like she was gliding. The captain stepped forward and introduced himself, explaining that they were travelers from another star system and that they meant no harm. The Queen listened without speaking when her gaze moved across the human group. Her expression remained calm until her eyes met Ryan's. For a brief moment, the hall grew quieter, her glowing eyes softened, and a faint color appeared on her silver cheeks. It was like a blush of rose light. Ryan felt unsure why she was looking at him that way. He lowered his head respectfully. The Queen spoke for the first time. Her voice was gentle but strong. She said that the arrival of humans was something foretold in their ancient records. The translator repeated her words, and everyone listened carefully. She looked directly at Ryan again and said something in her own language. The translator hesitated before rendering it into human speech. The words came through. "Clearly you are invited, human." The crew stood silent, not understanding what the phrase meant. The Queen turned to her guards and gave soft instructions. Then she looked back at Ryan with a faint smile. She said that the stars had carried them here for a reason and that the Alindra would learn from them as they would from the Alindra. Ryan felt both honored and confused. The Queen's tone sounded personal, almost as if she were speaking to him alone. The captain thanked her politely, and the guards led the humans to guest chambers within the palace. Ryan could not stop thinking about the Queen's words and the way she had looked at him. It was not fear or curiosity, but something deeper, something he could not explain. That night, from his room's window, Ryan watched the glowing city below. The lights moved in rhythm with the faint hum of the planet. He wondered if the universe had planned this meeting or if it was just chance. He thought of Earth, far away and unreachable, and wondered if he would ever return. Then his eyes caught sight of the palace tower where the Queen resided. A single light flickered there as if someone was awake. Looking at the same sky, Ryan did not know that his arrival had already changed the future of two civilizations. The Queen, alone in her chamber, stood by her window as well. She placed her hand on her heart and whispered words that only she could understand. She felt a strange warmth, something she had never experienced before. The prophecy of the spark had begun, and the human who brought it had already touched her soul without knowing. The stars above the city shone brighter that night, as if the universe itself watched silently. The meeting of a human and an alien queen had set a story in motion that would reach across worlds and time. Ryan woke up early the next morning to the sound of soft chimes outside his window. The sky above the Alindra city had turned from silver to pale gold as the twin suns rose. The air smelled clean, and the faint hum of the city felt almost musical. He looked down from his window and saw Alindra citizens walking gracefully through bright streets. They moved in harmony, as if every step followed an invisible rhythm. He still could not stop thinking about the Queen's words from the night before. "You are invited, human." What did she mean by that? Was it just a welcome, or something more? His mind searched for answers but found none when he joined the other crew members for breakfast. The atmosphere was calm but filled with quiet questions. The captain tried to act normal, yet everyone knew this mission had already turned into something beyond imagination. Their translator devices now worked better, so they could understand most of what the Alindra attendants said. After the meal, 2 royal guards entered. Their armor shimmered like moonlight. One of them bowed politely and said that the Queen requested Ryan to meet her in the grand garden. The captain raised his eyebrows but agreed, reminding Ryan to stay respectful. Ryan nodded and followed the guards through long, shining corridors that glowed with living light. The garden was enormous trees with blue and white leaves stretched toward the sky. Small streams of silver water ran between glowing stones. Birds with crystal wings flew above, leaving trails of light. The air was warm and soft, carrying a gentle scent of something sweet. Ryan felt like he had stepped inside a dream. At the center of the garden stood Queen Arialis. She was wearing a long robe made of translucent fabric that shimmered with the color of dawn. She looked calm, but her eyes carried the same warmth he had seen before when Ryan approached. She smiled lightly and motioned for him to walk beside her. They began to walk along a curved path lined with flowers that shone with inner light. The Queen spoke slowly, and her voice sounded like calm wind through trees. She said she wanted to know more about humanity, about their history, and how they had survived so far away from the ancient ruins of the old worlds. Ryan told her everything he could. He explained about Earth, about oceans and forests, about music and friendship. He told her humans were not perfect, but they always tried to learn and grow. The Queen listened carefully, sometimes closing her eyes as if picturing everything in her mind. When he spoke of rain on Earth, she smiled and said their world had lost natural rain centuries ago. Their weather was controlled by energy. Fields. She asked if humans still looked up at the stars with wonder. Ryan said they always did. He told her that many children on Earth dreamed of visiting other worlds. Just like this. As they talked, Ryan noticed how the Queen's expression softened whenever he spoke from the heart. She seemed fascinated not by human technology but by human feelings. She said that the Alindra had once been like humans. They had passion and curiosity, but over time they had become focused on perfection and order. Feelings became less important than control. She believed that was why their dreams began to fade. They stopped near a glowing pond. The surface reflected their faces like glass. The Queen turned to him and said that his arrival was no accident. Her ancestors had written of a visitor who would come from beyond the stars carrying the spark of life. She believed Ryan was that visitor. Ryan tried to smile politely but felt uncertain. He said he was only an engineer, not a chosen one. The Queen shook her head gently and said that destiny often hides in ordinary people. Suddenly, a group of Alindra guards entered the garden. They bowed but looked worried. One of them spoke quickly in their language. The Queen's smile faded. She turned to Ryan and said that the council demanded an explanation for why a human had been brought so close to the throne. She looked at him with regret and said he must attend a meeting with her to calm their fears. They went together to the council hall. It was a vast, circular room with floating lights. Above the ceiling, 12 high members of the Alindra Council sat around a shining table. Their faces were calm but their eyes sharp. The Queen took her seat at the head and asked Ryan to stand beside her. The council leader, an elder named Sareth, spoke first. He said that bringing an unknown being into their world was dangerous. He questioned why the Queen showed such trust in a human when so little was known about his species. Another member added that humans were known in ancient stories as reckless and unpredictable. They feared he might be a threat. Ryan listened quietly when they finished. The Queen looked at him and nodded slightly, as if giving permission to speak. Ryan took a step forward and spoke. In a clear voice, he said that humans were not perfect, but they valued life. They learned through mistakes, but always tried to protect what mattered most. He explained that they had crossed stars not to conquer, but to understand. His simple words filled the hall with silence. The council members studied him carefully. Finally, Elder Sareth said that words were easy, but trust was earned. He suggested that Ryan stay under the Queen's supervision until his intentions were clear. The Queen agreed, but added that Ryan had already shown honesty and respect. She declared that he was a guest of the royal house and would not be treated as a prisoner. After the meeting, Ryan walked beside the Queen through the long hallway lined with symbols of Alindra history. She told him not to worry. The council always feared what they did not understand. She said that in time, they would see his true nature. Ryan thanked her for standing by him. She smiled softly and said that her heart told her he was meant to be here during the next few days. Ryan remained in the palace. He learned more about Alindra science and culture. They had advanced technology powered by light energy drawn from the planet's core. Their knowledge was beyond anything humans had, but their society felt distant and quiet. Few Alindra laughed or showed strong emotion. They believed calmness was strength. Ryan respected that, but also felt it made their world a little cold. The Queen often invited him to join her for meals or walks in the palace gardens. She asked questions about Earth food, art, and music. Ryan described simple things like bread baking or rain tapping on windows. The Queen listened with bright eyes as if every detail was a treasure. One evening, she asked him to play a human melody on a small device he carried. He played a gentle tune from his home. The notes filled the room with warmth. The queen closed her eyes and said it was the most beautiful sound she had heard in centuries as time passed. Ryan noticed whispers among the palace guards. Some looked at him with curiosity, while others with suspicion. One night, while working on his data tablet, he received a message from one of the engineers aboard the Horizon Star. The message said that strange readings had appeared near the wormhole that brought them here. It was growing unstable and might reopen. Ryan knew that if it did, the energy could destroy nearby worlds, including this one. He decided to tell the queen at once when he reached her chamber. She was standing by the window looking at the stars. He explained the situation in simple words and showed her the readings. Her calm face turned serious. She said they would begin investigations immediately and ordered her scientist to study the data. She thanked Ryan for his honesty and said she would trust his judgment before he left. She said something that made him pause. She said that his arrival might not only be fate, but also a test for both their peoples. She believed the future of their worlds depended on how they faced this danger together that night. Ryan lay awake thinking about everything that had happened: the queen's kindness, the council's doubt, the growing storm in space. It was too much for one man to handle, but he felt a strange courage rising inside him. He remembered the queen's words about ordinary people carrying great destiny, and maybe she was right. Far above the palace, the twin suns faded into the horizon. The city of light grew quiet, but somewhere beyond the stars a new energy wave began to stir. The same pulse that had brought Ryan here was returning stronger than before. The universe was not done with them yet. The next morning began with a heavy silence in the Alindra city. The air that usually shimmered with bright light now looked dim. Ryan walked through the palace halls feeling an uneasy tension. The soft hum that always filled the air was weaker, almost trembling. As he reached the control chamber where the royal scientists worked, he found everyone busy studying streams of glowing symbols floating above their consoles. Queen Arialis stood near the center of the room speaking with her advisors. Her calm face showed concern. When she saw Ryan, she signaled for him to come closer. He bowed slightly before approaching. She said that their instruments had confirmed his warning. The same energy field that had brought his ship here had begun to rise again near the outer rings. Ryan asked how far the disturbance was. The queen replied that it was spreading fast and could reach their world within a few weeks. The scientists believed it might be the same wormhole that had pulled the Horizon Star across space, but now unstable and dangerous. Ryan felt a chill at the thought if it collapsed. The explosion of energy could destroy everything nearby. The queen asked if humans had experience dealing with such storms. Ryan said that humans had studied smaller versions of them, but nothing of this scale. He offered to help design a containment plan. The queen agreed immediately and ordered her head scientist to give Ryan access to their energy data. Some advisors looked unhappy, but said nothing. As Ryan began studying the Alindra systems, he realized their technology was based on principles completely different from human science. They used living crystals that responded to sound and emotion. Their machines were not built, but grown. They reacted to the will of the operator through a mental link. Ryan found this fascinating and confusing at the same time. While he worked, the queen often visited the lab. She asked about human methods and tried to understand his calculations. Sometimes she would watch quietly as he drew diagrams on a floating board. Her presence always made the room feel brighter. Her curiosity and patience reminded Ryan of a scientist rather than a ruler. She once told him that true leaders must also be learners. But not everyone felt the same. A tall Alindra general named Varric had grown restless. He was known for his loyalty to the queen, but also for his pride. He saw Ryan as a threat to Alindra honor. To him, trusting an unknown alien was dangerous. He believed the queen's kindness blinded her judgment. One afternoon, while Ryan was running simulations, Varric entered the lab with several guards. He demanded to see the data. Ryan greeted him politely and explained that the storm was real and growing worse. Varric accused him of lying to gain influence over the queen. He said that humans might have caused the disturbance to control Alindra technology. Ryan denied the accusation calmly and said he only wanted to save both worlds. Varric's voice grew louder, but the queen entered before the argument could continue. She looked at the general with firm eyes and ordered him to stand down. She said Ryan had her full trust, and anyone who questioned, that must bring proof. Varric bowed stiffly and left without another word. The room remained silent for a moment. The Queen turned to Ryan and said he should not let fear or doubt distract him. She promised that truth would always find light. Days passed, as Ryan worked tirelessly with the Alindra scientists. Together, they designed a device that could stabilize the energy field before it reached critical level. The plan was risky. It required placing a large energy converter at the edge of the planet's orbit. The device would channel the unstable energy back into balance during those long hours. Ryan and the Queen often shared quiet conversations. She told him about her people's past. The Alindra once had many colonies and were explorers like humans. But after the Great Silence that destroyed several of their worlds, they turned inward. They built a life of peace but lost the courage to travel beyond their safe stars. Ryan listened with understanding. He told her that humans also faced fear but always kept moving forward. She said that was what made humanity special one night. After finishing another test, Ryan stepped out to the palace balcony. The city glowed beneath the twin moons. He could see energy towers shining faintly in the distance. The Queen joined him a few minutes later. She stood beside him in silence, watching the lights. She said that the council still doubted the plan, but she believed in him. She said she had never met anyone who carried so much hope. Even in fear, Ryan thanked her and said he was only doing his duty. She smiled and said that sometimes duty alone could not make someone face the unknown. She said courage came from something deeper. She looked at him for a moment, then turned back to the view. Her eyes reflected the stars, and Ryan thought they looked like distant galaxies filled with secrets. The next morning, an urgent alarm spread through the palace. The storm had accelerated. The energy readings were off the scale. The Queen called an emergency meeting with her council. The room was tense. Varric spoke first, saying that the humans' plan had failed before it began. He demanded that the Queen send Ryan and his crew back through the wormhole before it was too late. Ryan stood up and explained that returning through the unstable wormhole would destroy them and might tear open a bigger rift. He said the only chance was to deploy the stabilizer. Now the Queen looked around the room and saw fear on every face. She stood and spoke clearly. She said that their world had survived centuries of peace, but peace meant nothing without courage. She said they would follow the plan and that Ryan would lead the operation. Varric protested, but the Queen silenced him with a single glance. Her voice carried strength that filled the hall. She said that leadership meant trusting even when others could not. She turned to Ryan and told him that she was placing her world in his hands. Ryan felt a heavy weight but also a deep sense of honor. He promised that he would not fail her. The following days were filled with preparation. The Alindra engineers worked, with human tools, and learned quickly. Their light ships gathered around the orbiting station where the stabilizer would be installed. Ryan led both teams, explaining each step. The Alindra found his methods strange but efficient. He admired their ability to shape energy through thought. They began to respect each other as true partners. Meanwhile, Varric secretly gathered a few followers who still distrusted humans. He planned to disable the mission once they launched, believing that the storm was a sign from their gods not to interfere. But one of his aides disagreed and warned the Queen of his plan. She listened quietly and said that sometimes even those who resist are driven by fear. She asked the guards to keep watch, but not harm anyone unless necessary, on the eve of launch. The Queen visited Ryan in the hangar. She handed him a small crystal pendant glowing with soft light. She said it was a symbol of trust worn by Alindra explorers centuries ago. It would help him focus and protect him from confusion when working. Near high energy fields, Ryan accepted it with gratitude and promised to return it once the mission succeeded. She smiled and said she hoped he would keep it instead. When the stabilizer ship left the planet, hundreds of Alindra citizens gathered in the sky plazas to watch. The Queen stood on the highest balcony, her hands clasped as she looked up. The silver light of the engines filled the air. Ryan sat in the control seat, surrounded by both human and Alindra crew. They moved in perfect coordination as they neared the outer orbit. The sensors began to shake. The wormhole was now visible as a swirling mass of blue and black energy. It looked like a storm made of glass and lightning. The crew felt the pull of its gravity. Ryan gave calm instructions telling everyone to hold their positions and activate the energy shields. Then the readings changed suddenly. The storm's core began to pulse faster. The ship trembled, and alarms filled the cabin. The stabilizer system could not sync with the Alindra field generator. Something was blocking the signal. Ryan checked the data and realized someone had tampered with the main relay. He guessed it was Varric's doing. There was no time to turn back. Ryan rushed to the manual override chamber and connected the systems by hand. Sparks flew as the energy surged through the circuits. He shouted for the others to engage the stabilizer at full power. The wormhole flashed bright white light, filling space with waves of sound. The ship shook as if caught between two forces on the planet. Below, the Queen watched the sky turn blue and silver. A beam of light rose from the orbit station, reaching toward the storm. The clouds split open, revealing a spiral of glowing energy. Then everything went silent. The light faded slowly, leaving the stars clear again. For a moment, no one moved. Then a voice came through the communicator. Ryan's voice, weak but steady. He said the stabilizer was holding, but the energy had not fully settled yet. The Queen closed her eyes in relief and whispered a silent promise to the stars that she would not let his courage be forgotten. The danger had not ended, but hope had returned. The Queen ordered preparations for possible evacuation if the storm reignited. She also commanded that Ryan be supported with everything. He needed the Alindra now began to see him not as a stranger, but as a protector from another world far beyond the horizon. Inside the glowing field, the stabilizer ship floated in calm silence. Ryan looked out the window at the quiet stars. He touched the crystal pendant around his neck and thought of the Queen's words. Trust always leads to light. He smiled faintly, knowing that this was only the beginning of their shared fight for survival. The energy storm had grown stronger than anyone had predicted. The swirling mass of blue and black light outside the planet's orbit pulsed with raw power. The Alindra city on the surface glowed dimly under the rising chaos. The Queen walked through the streets in her silver robe, observing her people. She saw the fear in some eyes and the determination in others. She knew that hope must lead them. Even in the darkest hour, Ryan stood in the control chamber of the stabilizer ship. He felt the weight of responsibility pressing on his shoulders. Every instrument flashed with warnings. Every second counted. If they failed, the storm could rip open the space around the planet and destroy everything in its path. He adjusted the energy channels, keeping the field stable while monitoring the Alindra energy cores. The Queen appeared on the large viewing screen above him. Her presence gave Ryan courage. She said that the city below would need protection while the storm raged. He nodded and explained that their orbital shields could only cover limited areas. The Queen suggested using the light energy from the city towers to expand the shield. Ryan realized it was a brilliant idea. It would require precise timing and perfect coordination together. They began instructing the Alindra engineers to link their towers with the orbital stabilizer. Ryan's hands moved quickly over the control panels, guiding the alien systems. The Queen's voice came through the communicator, calmly giving instructions and encouraging her people. She reminded them that fear was natural, but courage was stronger. Meanwhile, Varric and a small group of Alindra loyalists still doubted the plan. They secretly tried to disable one of the tower links, believing the human could not succeed. They wanted to force the Queen to retreat. Ryan's sensors detected a sudden drop in energy output. He realized someone was interfering without knowing exactly who. He immediately contacted the Queen. She understood at once and directed a squad of her most trusted guards to protect the tower network. They moved silently and swiftly, confronting the saboteurs before any serious damage could occur. Ryan focused back on the main controls, aware that every second lost could cost them dearly. The storm's outer edge began to touch the orbit station. The ship trembled. Violently, lightning-like streaks of energy shot past the windows. The crew held tight as Ryan adjusted the stabilizer's flow to match the storm's unpredictable pulses. He shouted instructions over the comm system while simultaneously calculating new angles for the energy shields on the planet below. The Alindra people gathered in open plazas. Some were terrified, while others worked tirelessly to maintain the city's defense systems. Their energy conduits glowed brighter as the Queen walked among them. She touched the towers gently, directing the flow of power with her mental link. The light from her hand spread across the city, connecting each tower like a web of silver threads. Ryan watched the energy network stabilize temporarily, but the storm was far from over. It shifted and twisted with dangerous speed. He realized the only way to survive was to combine human technology with Alindra. Instinct, he instructed the human engineers to reroute additional power to the orbital stabilizer, while the Alindra linked their consciousness with the machine. The moment the connection was complete, a surge of light filled the chamber. Ryan felt the energy pulse through his body as if the storm itself recognized him. The Queen's voice came clearly through the comm system. She encouraged him to stay calm and trust the rhythm of the universe. Ryan focused on the flow, moving with the energy rather than against it. Suddenly, a massive wave of black energy struck the stabilizer. The ship rocked violently. Alarms blared. Crew members shouted, but Ryan held steady. He adjusted the energy output using a combination of human calculations and Alindra energy manipulation. The shields around the orbiting station glowed brighter as the storm's force was absorbed and redirected. The Queen observed everything from the palace viewing platform. She saw the stabilizer shining like a silver sun in the sky. She knew that Ryan's courage had inspired her people. The Alindra citizens began chanting softly, their voices harmonizing with the city's energy towers. The combined sound and light strengthened the stabilizer. Pushing back the storm, Varric appeared on a communication link, his voice sharp and full of disbelief. He demanded to know how a human could command such power. The Queen answered calmly that trust and courage often surpass fear and doubt. Ryan felt a small surge of pride at her words. He knew the moment of danger had become a moment of unity between humans and Alindra. Hours passed as the battle continued. The storm lashed the orbit station with growing intensity, but the combined human-Alindra efforts gradually brought it under control. Ryan coordinated with the Queen continuously, their teamwork seamless. She directed the mental link with the towers while he adjusted the technical energy flow. Their movements were perfectly synchronized, like dancers following the same rhythm. Finally, the storm reached its peak. The wormholes
edges stretched wide as the energy threatened to tear space
apart. Ryan took a deep breath and activated the final sequence. The stabilizer's core glowed with blinding light. The orbital shields expanded fully, linking with every city tower below. The storm screamed as it collided with the force of combined determination. A massive explosion of blue-white light lit the sky brighter than the twin suns. The city below trembled as energy waves washed over it, but the shields held. The storm began to shrink, losing strength rapidly. The wormhole wavered and finally collapsed into itself, leaving only calm stars in the sky. The crew inside the stabilizer ship slumped in relief. Ryan's hands shook from exhaustion, but his mind was alert. He checked every system. The stabilizer was stable. The city below was safe. The Alindra people erupted in cheers as the Queen's voice echoed across the plazas. She thanked every citizen for their courage and praised Ryan for his brilliance and bravery. Varric remained silent, no longer able to deny the human skill and the Queen's wisdom. His expression softened as he realized that unity had saved them all. He bowed his head, acknowledging the strength Ryan had brought to their world. Later, as the crew returned to the city, the Queen greeted Ryan personally. She placed her hand lightly on his shoulder and said that he had not only saved the Alindra but also reminded them of the courage that once defined their people. She smiled softly and told him that their worlds would now remember this day forever. Ryan felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He realized that courage and determination could cross any boundary, even between species. He thanked the Queen for trusting him and for believing in the value of hope. The Queen looked at him warmly and said that when she first saw him, she had sensed this spark in him. The citizens of Alindra celebrated the victory. The light from the towers reflected in the city streets like rivers of silver. Ryan walked among them, witnessing their gratitude and joy. He felt proud of the partnership between humans and Alindra and understood that both species had much to learn from each other. In the quiet moments after the celebration, the Queen invited Ryan to the palace garden. She told him that although the storm had passed, challenges would always arise in the universe. She said that what mattered Most was the willingness to face them together. Ryan nodded and agreed. They walked along the glowing paths. Surrounded by shimmering plants, the night air was calm and the twin moons, reflected in the silver streams. The Queen turned to Ryan and said that courage, trust, and compassion were universal, forces stronger than any technology or weapon. She smiled and whispered that the human spark he carried had lit a path for both their peoples. Ryan realized in that moment that his journey had changed both worlds forever. He understood that humans, though small in the vast universe, could make a difference when guided by heart and mind. The Queen's faith in him had created a bond between two civilizations, a bond built on trust, respect, and shared destiny. The stars above the Elindra city shone brighter than ever. The stabilizer had held. The storm had passed and the promise of unity shone across the world. The future was still uncertain, but Ryan knew that as long as humans and Elindra faced it together, they could overcome anything. The Queen looked at him once more and said softly, "You are always welcome here, human." Her words carried warmth, strength, and a quiet invitation for the journey that lay ahead. Ryan bowed with gratitude and replied that he would honor it together. Standing beneath the glowing twin moons, the human and the Queen gazed at the horizon. Their worlds had survived the storm, and in that moment, they both understood that the universe had far greater plans for them than they could imagine. The sky above the Elindra city was calm and bright after the great storm. The twin suns rose together, casting silver and gold light across the towers. The city looked peaceful, but everyone knew that the universe still held dangers, yet there was hope now. A sense of possibility that had not existed for centuries. Ryan walked through the streets with the Queen by his side. The citizens gathered around to greet them. Some bowed. Others smiled or waved. Their energy seemed lighter now, as if the storm had awakened a new courage within them. Ryan felt proud to see the Elindra embracing him, not as a stranger but as a hero. The Queen led him to the council hall once more. She wanted to formally discuss the future. With Ryan and her advisors, the room was filled. With Elindra, who had worked tirelessly to protect the city and stabilize the storm, some were still cautious, but the majority carried pride and gratitude in their eyes. The Queen spoke first. She said that humans and Elindra had survived the storm. Together it had proven that unity was stronger than fear or pride. She told the council that Ryan's knowledge, courage, and humanity had saved countless lives. She asked that humans be welcomed into Elindra space for exchange, learning, and mutual support. Ryan stood respectfully and addressed the council. He spoke simply and clearly about Earth and humanity. He said humans were explorers and learners. They sought to understand, not conquer. He explained that humans could share technology, science, and culture, but also wanted to learn from Elindra wisdom and energy mastery. Some council members were hesitant, especially Varek, who had once doubted Ryan's intentions. But seeing the cooperation between humans and Elindra during the storm, even he could not deny the results. Ryan's courage had inspired not only the people but also the leaders. The council agreed, voting unanimously to establish the first Human-Elindra Alliance. They decided to build joint research stations and trade outposts and to allow human diplomats to visit safely. The Queen looked at Ryan and said that their first mission together had built trust for a lifetime. She smiled warmly and told him that his efforts had opened a path for both civilizations. After the council meeting, the Queen invited Ryan to the palace gardens once more. They walked quietly along glowing streams and shimmering flowers. Ryan asked her how she felt now that the danger had passed. She said she felt relief, gratitude, and something new in her heart. She admitted that when she first saw him, she had been surprised by an emotion she did not fully understand. She had felt a spark of hope and connection. Ryan listened quietly. He had learned that humans and Elindra were not so different in their desire to survive and grow. He told her that humans often felt small in the universe but believed that courage and friendship could make a difference. The Queen nodded and said that this belief was what had drawn her to him. The Queen led Ryan to a small pavilion overlooking the city. From there, he could see all the towers glowing softly in the sunlight. The Elindra citizens below were rebuilding parts of the city that had been shaken by the storm. They worked together, combining human tools and Elindra energy to strengthen structures and improve defenses. Ryan realized how much they had learned From each other, humans had taught new ways of thinking about problem-solving and machines. Alindra had shared their deep understanding of energy, harmony, and the connection between living things and technology. The partnership had created something stronger than either civilization alone. Days turned into weeks as preparations began for the alliance. The first human outpost was built on a small Alindra moon nearby. Engineers and scientists from both worlds worked together every day. Ryan saw progress and collaboration. The Queen often visited the outpost, asking questions and encouraging both humans and Alindra. She said that learning from each other was the greatest gift they could share. One quiet evening, Ryan and the Queen stood on the palace balcony watching the twin moons reflect in the streams below. She thanked him again for his courage and honesty. She said that his presence had reminded the Alindra of the value of emotions, curiosity, and the courage to face the unknown. Ryan bowed slightly. Feeling humbled, the Queen smiled softly and said something that made his heart lift. She said that when she first saw him, she had been touched by hope and something deeper. That feeling had guided her in trusting him during the storm. She told him that he had become part of her world and that he would always be welcomed. Ryan realized the journey had changed him as well. He had learned that humanity's strength came not only from technology, but from the heart and mind working together. He had also found that trust and courage could inspire even those who had long forgotten what it meant to hope. As the days passed, cultural exchanges began. Humans taught the Alindra about music, art, and games. They shared stories from Earth about mountains, oceans, and friendships. Alindra taught humans to shape energy through focus and harmony. They shared their techniques for growing structures and controlling light fields. Together, both civilizations discovered the joy of learning from one another. One morning, Ryan was asked to address a group of young Alindra students. He spoke about exploration, curiosity, and the importance of courage. He encouraged them to dream, to seek knowledge, and to trust in their own abilities. The students listened attentively, their glowing eyes reflecting wonder and admiration. Meanwhile, the Queen continued her leadership with renewed confidence. She had seen that accepting outsiders could bring strength rather than weakness. She spent hours discussing new ideas with Ryan and the other humans, planning how their alliance could grow peacefully. She emphasized that the key to a strong future was trust and mutual respect. In private moments, Ryan and the Queen often spoke quietly in the gardens. They shared stories of their worlds, their childhoods, and the challenges they had faced. Their bond deepened through understanding and admiration. They did not need words to explain the connection growing between them. It was a shared respect and the knowledge that they had faced danger together. Months later, the first human Alindra joint mission launched beyond the known stars. Their goal was to explore another part of the galaxy that had been unreachable before. The team included humans and Alindra working as equals. They carried instruments and knowledge from both civilizations. The launch was celebrated in Alindra cities and across human communication networks. Ryan stood at the edge of the launch platform, watching the ships depart. He felt proud and hopeful. He thought of the storm, the courage of both peoples, and the trust the Queen had shown him. He knew that humanity had earned a place among the stars, not by force but by cooperation, wisdom, and heart. The Queen approached and stood beside him. She touched his arm gently and said that the spark he carried had changed her people forever. She whispered that her world had learned to hope again. Because of him, Ryan smiled and said that both their worlds had been strengthened by their shared courage that night. Under the twin moons, Ryan walked through the palace gardens with the Queen. The city below glowed softly as Alindra families shared stories and laughter. The energy towers reflected the warmth of life and hope. The stars above seemed brighter, as if celebrating the unity that had been forged between humans and Alindra. The Queen stopped near a silver stream and looked at Ryan. She said that the future would bring challenges, but together they could face anything. She told him that he had shown her that ordinary beings could carry extraordinary light. Ryan bowed respectfully and promised to honor that trust. The two of them stood quietly for a long time, watching the city and the stars. The wind carried a gentle hum through the trees. The universe had tested them and had given them a chance to build something new and lasting in the days that followed. The alliance between humans and Alindra flourished. Explorers from both civilizations traveled together, shared knowledge, and defended each other when threats arose. They discovered new worlds, learned new techniques, and deepened their understanding of life and energy. Ryan returned to Earth briefly to share the story of the alliance he brought. Humans' new knowledge of energy fields and the Alindra culture. The human world was inspired, and preparations began for a new era of exploration and cooperation. Back on the Alindra homeworld, the Queen and Ryan walked again in the palace garden. She thanked him for his courage, his patience, and his belief in the goodness of life. She told him that when she first saw him, she had felt something she had not experienced in centuries. Now she understood that hope, trust, and courage could bridge worlds. Ryan smiled and said that humanity had always believed in reaching beyond the stars. He said that meeting her and her people had shown that trust and courage could create new paths. Even in the most dangerous times, the Queen placed her hand lightly on his shoulder and whispered again, "You are always invited." Her words carried warmth, respect, and a quiet promise of future adventures. Together, they stood beneath the twin moons, looking at a galaxy filled with possibilities. The future of humanity and Alindra was now intertwined. Both civilizations had survived the storm and learned from one another. They had built trust, respect, and friendship. The stars above reflected their courage and their hope. The universe was vast and unknown, but they knew that together, they could face it and shine brighter than ever.